Today I'm going to show you the next steps for how to sculpt the body. And the first step is starting towards the bottom and then you kind of work your way up, okay? You want it to be balanced. So if we start with the feet, typically the feet are on the ground. If you have something where it's like bending and the hands and the feet are the ground, you can work from both sides, but a good rule of thumb is just start at the feet. Okay, so I have started working on this foot, and I'm just going to talk to you about how to do that. So everyone is going to receive a packet that looks like this, and it goes through images, and it's highly exaggerated, but it goes through images of the muscle structures and the body. Okay, so we're really going to be studying this a lot. Your own body is your best model. So I'm going to be starting with the foot, and I just want to point out some things with the foot, okay? So make sure you guys can see. The foot is taller where it meets the ankle, and then it gets shorter as it goes down to the toe. We do have a ball on our heel. So if you were to just leave it like this and don't put a piece back here, the foot would not be balanced, okay? So we're gonna be adding a ball here. If you look at it in the front view, so typically between the knuckles, so where your toes start, is the widest part of the foot, okay? So let me talk about how to sculpt. So we're not gonna just be wrapping with the plaster strips anymore. We're gonna actually be making shapes based off of what we're looking at, okay? So just try to break it down as best as you can. Also, when you're sculpting, it's gonna take some buildup, okay? So using the smaller pieces is kind of nice because if you do mess up or, you know, it starts to get too wide, there's less chance of that happening. So I'm gonna start over here so I can show you. Make sure you guys can see it. I'm gonna start with this one here. And you can see right now it's just kind of wrapped one time. Okay, so I have my water. I'm gonna dip that in there. And what I'm gonna be making is literally a ball. Okay, so it kind of looks like that. It doesn't have to be a perfect ball. While it's still wet, you're going to put that on there. And when you put it on, try to smush it in and blend the edges, okay? If you notice your plaster strips are hard, it's probably because you've been dripping water on them. It's really important that you keep your plaster strips separate from your water, that you're not dipping it in the water and going over top of that. So I'm gonna switch it around so I don't do that. Okay, so now you can see the foot. Something you can do to help you see how this angles is if you hold your finger at the tip of the toe and then point it back towards the ankle, I can see that that negative space in between my fingers and the foot needs to be filled, okay? So as I am making this, I'm either making ball forms or just really, it's not really a form. Once I get it on there, then I can start like sculpting the shape and making it fit up against here. Okay, so I'm gonna blend it. And the first thing that I'm doing is just trying to get the height of the foot. And I really don't need to add a lot more from where I'm at right now. Okay. So I'd probably get a small one to add right here so there isn't just this big bump that moves from the heel to this area. So I have that, but you can see the front of the toe is still very pointed. it doesn't have a width here. It's wider back here where I want it to be a little bit wider here. So I'm gonna grab a strip. I need a smaller one. So I'm gonna fold this and I'm going to make almost like a hot dog and just wrap it around the foot so it builds some width there. When I wrap that around the foot, I'm also going to be kind of pinching it. So as I'm sculpting all of this, I'm making sure it's blended. I'm also looking at the images or my own foot a lot. Okay, it's their number one helper. So, as you can see, it's starting to look like this. And realize it always looks strange as you're building because the rest of the body isn't built up. So, I would probably grab some smaller pieces to fill in some spaces. I found a small piece, luckily. So I'm gonna fill in that spot. So as you're working, another thing you can do to kind of smooth it out is get some plaster, just normal plaster. It's not the strips. The plaster is a powder and it's what's on the strips or the gauze strips, but it helps with smoothing and it makes it just a little bit stronger. So as you're working, you can also have this out, which is in the same area where the plaster strips are, in a big box. And you can just grab a cup. Also the same idea. As soon as this gets wet, you have to use it. So what I typically do is get a very little amount and dip my finger in the water, and then push it onto there. You oftentimes have to go back into the water to get that smoothed out and blended. Okay. If you do this as you go, it will make it a little bit stronger. You can build it up like a little bit before you start adding this. So like you could start the calf before you do that. So it's looking pretty good. It still doesn't have a wide enough toe at the front or the knuckle. So I am gonna add a little bit there. So again, it's kind of that hot dog shape. I'm getting a little bit closer to the toe and I'm just gonna pinch it because it's flattest there as well. Okay, so I feel like my foot is pretty good at this point and I'm ready to move on. So when you build up the calf, I want to show you some pictures. I love these because they're super exaggerated and they help you see the shapes, like they break them down. And one of the pictures, there's a couple pictures that I really like to look at. This one right here and here, sorry, shows you the shape of the muscles in the lower leg, okay? So it's skinnier where the ankle is, and oftentimes you don't have to add much or if anything to the ankle. If you build it up too much, it's gonna look very strange, okay? And then this top part here is an upside down like teardrop. And then again, these two things are teardrops. And you can literally make those exact shapes and attach them. So on this one, you can see it has been smoothed and it has, it still has a muscle structure, but it's not as defined. And that's because I have more of a skin on here, okay? You can see that I added a little bit to the ankle there too. All right, so I'll just show you kind of how to shape it. Sometimes having some bigger and smaller pieces, like I said, is helpful. So, and realize these meatier parts of the leg are going to be built up. Okay, so I have this kind of shape. I'm going to attach it here. I'm gonna attach it back here. So on the calf, the biggest part of the muscle is in the back part. As you move up the leg, the muscle becomes a little bit more apparent in the front part of the body. Something that I should tell you right now is that you should also be looking at your picture that you're modeling off of. So you know the knee, where the knees are pointed, and which direction you should be working in. Okay, so make sure you're following that so it looks accurate. And then also realize the calf is right below the knee. So I'm just gonna start by getting some of that build up first, just so I can see it a little bit better. So I'm still just building the shapes. No more wrapping. You will have a sausage person if you wrap it all together. And if you try to keep some separation between like the major calf muscles, and then when you go to smooth it, it'll smooth over that skin and it won't look so strange. But that's a good start, okay? I am obviously still building up. You are gonna have to build onto the side of the leg, so it should be a skinnier piece than that. If you don't like the shape, just get a new one. Let's say you get it on here and it really just not look accurate, or it's gotten too big. You want to try to take that off immediately. It's a lot more challenging to take it off once it dries. So I'm only going to go over the foot and the calf. Once you have finished, getting those built up, and this isn't built up quite enough yet, but I know this video is kind of getting long. So once you get that built up and have sculpted all the shapes, you can go in with a little bit of the loose plaster and just kind of fill in and smooth in some of those areas, and that's going to make it stronger and look nicer. And sometimes you have to build it up. Okay. Good luck, guys. Can't wait to see what you come up with.